All right, so I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret right now, which is that most coaches, healers, founders, people in the service-based industry, they absolutely suck at closing, sales, marketing, and those kind of skills. And the reason why I can say this with such confidence, clarity, and conviction in my heart right now is because I've literally spent like the last week, 2 weeks doing market research within this particular space because those are the type of people that I serve as people that I can work with within my particular domain of expertise in business. And after jumping on calls with them and seeing the similar theme that was coming up on these calls without them necessarily even realizing it so much as well, is that most of them were just absolutely terrible in closing, sales, marketing, and the skills that actually bring in customers and clients into their business, as well as growing their business as well. And for me, it was actually quite shocking to just see how consistent that this pattern really was within the industry. And it shouldn't be, because if I share my story with you, it's like how I got started out in business was that after transitioning from my career in more like a office job and everything like that, I transitioned into entrepreneurship. And the first thing that I went into was applying where I felt confident, which was in the area of sports, since I used to be an athlete and a competitive athlete, let me put it that way. And so when I made my transition, I went into personal training. That was the thing that made the most sense, is to just go into fitness. I saw lots of people succeeding with it, and I thought that I could be one of those people too. And so when I got my personal training qualification certificate, I was like, okay, this is enough for me to be able to start making an impact. This is going to be enough for me to be able to start going out there and training clients, getting results, making sales. But the reality of it was that from the knowledge that I gained in that personal training qualification, it was like it taught me how to train my potential prospects and clients. It taught me how to personally have a good physique and do so in the most effective way. But the one thing that it did not do is it did not teach me how to get sales, clients, customers, and do that for myself. There may have been a very small section on it just to pass the certificate, but there was no actual training that I went through. And so that's how it all sort of started out. And I believe as well, like a big part of the reason for why I didn't just, start offering my services as an athlete to other people to help them, since, I was part of the top 1% when it came to my sports. Why I didn't just start offering my services was because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And this may resonate with yourself as well if you're somebody who, is becoming a coach or a healer, or like someone who is in the service-based industry, is that you may have this feeling of lack within that you're trying to fill through some form of validation that comes from a certificate or from a degree that will say to you that now you're good enough to start actually going out into the marketplace and offering your services. But the reality is that when that happens, it's like all you get is the knowledge. All you get is the statement that says you can go and offer this as a professional. But what you don't ever get to experience is what it's like to now go out there, put yourself into the marketplace, and do your best to attract customers in and to bring them in as clients. Because it's not just a simple thing where it's like, okay, just now that I've got my personal training certificate, or now that I've got my coaching certificate, people just start walking through the door. In reality, what happened for me was I got my personal training certificate, and for like literally the first 6 months to a year, it was like crickets, because I wasn't approaching people, I wasn't doing like online marketing, and I was just almost expecting that the gym would do all the work for me. I was expecting that, people, once they heard that I was a personal trainer, they'd all become my client. I didn't realize that there was a whole other domain of expertise that I had to learn, which was in the areas of sales and marketing and things like that. And so then, because I still had this unconscious belief within me, which was that I wasn't good enough, then I got more and more qualifications. I started to get more and more knowledge and consume more and more information. And it was all, again, coming from this place of, right now, where I am currently, I'm not enough to charge these particular prices. I'm not enough to be able to go out there and make sales to the people I want to sell to. And so that was my reality, which is why, truly, like the statement that I made at the beginning, which is, I've discovered and concluded that practically 99% of coaches, healers, and people who are just, in the service-based industry and want to help people, I believe that 99% of you are absolutely terrible at sales, marketing. And I'm saying this not as a personal attack. This is me sharing this with love, compassion, because I want you to win. I want you to be able to make an impact and not have to go through the same challenges and difficulties that I went through myself. And the biggest thing that I want to share with you right now with love is that you are just absolutely terrible when it comes to sales and marketing. And that is the number one way that you're actually going to be able to grow your impact and grow your business. Because ultimately, it's like, if you have a solution in place, which is either going to be you sharing your knowledge, sharing your value, sharing your opportunity, your impact, and you can give it away for free to people through your content, just like I'm doing right now with this content over here. You can give it away to people for free, but you know in your heart that what you've created in your structured container is where the real transformation happens. And it's only when they put their treasure into that particular structured container that they can experience the significant transformation that you intend for them to have, the one that you desire for them more than anything. That's your deepest intention for your audience. And so the truth that I believe you have to swallow as a truth pill right now, even if it's tough to do so as a coach, is number one, you're not good at closing, you're not good at sales, you're not good at marketing by no fault of your own. I've just explained and prioritizing these certifications because they simply feed off of your lack. But the deeper reason behind it, truthfully, is that you just don't really care that much about your audience. And I know that one may sting. It might even feel like, yeah, that's not speaking directly to me. That's someone else. That's a different coach. I care about my people. Like, I show up for all my my sessions. I'm one of the best coaches out there, and I'm always going above and beyond, an extra mile with people who have come to me and just basically bought without me even needing to sell them, right? But the reality is, and this is something that I learned on one of my first days in my sales career when I was doing door-to-door sales. One of the first things that I learned is that in sales, there's 10% of people who are what we call the green lights, 10% are what we call the red lights, and there's 80% that are what we call the amber lights. And so the 10% who are the green lights are the people who, they're in the most amount of pain, and they're also financially to be able to make a purchase, so they're the best buyers. And you can just literally go and find the buyers who are in that 10%, and they'll go and be your easiest customers that you'll have come through. Like, you won't have to do any kind of persuasion, objection handling, nothing like that. It's just literally going to be a case of, you want to buy it? Yep, let's go, and they'll run with it. It's 10% of the people. The other 10%, the red lights, are the people who are literally like completely negative. Even if you spent years with them, chances are like they'd still not become a buyer. So it's not worth your time. But that's only 10%. And then the 80% of the people are people who make up the majority of your market. The people who are not necessarily, really ready to buy and bought into your thing. They're not 100% certain. So what it requires with these people is that you have to be able to shift them from where they are right now to somebody who's uneducated, somebody who's unaware, to someone who fully understands and appreciates why working with you is going to be the best thing that they can possibly experience. And that requires for you as a coach and a healer to have the skills and ability to ethically persuade somebody to understand more about what it is that you have to offer that is going to genuinely help them go through the transformation that you believe that they can experience. And so the reason I share this is because when you're somebody who is just saying as a coach, like, I only work with the people who, they come to me. I only work with the people who I get as referrals. I only work with the people who, are ready to buy right now. That 10%. What you're basically saying is that I don't care about the 80% of the market who are skeptical. I don't care about the majority of people. All I care about is this 10%, because my ego is too big to say, you know what, I got some learning to do. You know, that there is when it comes to you improving your sales and marketing is for you to become the best salesperson in the world. Like, that's not what I'm describing. What I'm saying is that you could, for example, you could hire a sales team. You could, partner with somebody else who's good in that particular area. But to simply ignore it and be like, I'm only working with the 10% of people, that's just to me, that's negligence. And again, I don't actually feel like the coaches and healers, like, the problem that you have is that you don't care in general. I just think it's more like where you place your care is on your ego, like it's on your image, and it's on you attempting to get rid of this inferiority complex and get rid of this thing of I'm not enough, by then shifting the focus onto all of these other aspects of, how you've now got all this knowledge, you've got all of these certificates, you've got all of these years of experience. At the end of the day, like, none of it actually matters. Your clients don't care about that. There's a quote that, really had a major impact on my life, which was that nobody actually cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. And again, like, I feel like the coaches that I've spoken to, all of you have such big hearts. You all want to serve. You all want to help. But the reality is that 80% of the people who want your help and can only get your help if you're able to shift their beliefs, if you're able to ethically persuade them to become green lights, then they're never going to be able to experience that. And they're going to stay stuck. And for me, the moment where this really hit home, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was at an event, and it was, all of these big speakers in business that I was learning from, listening to at the beginning of my journey, when I was someone that, hadn't really made many sales whatsoever, because I was so focused on making myself better, my own personal growth, my own personal development, and convincing myself, selling myself unconsciously on this idea that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't ready to start bringing in clients. And so whilst I was at this event, they pulled out this speaker who I didn't even know of at the time. But when he came out, like, by far, compared to everybody else that was there, his speech, his message resonated most deeply with me, and I'd probably say, like, for everybody else that was there as well. And at the time, that was from Dean Graziosi, who currently now works very closely with Tony Robbins. And, Tony Robbins, one of the biggest coaches in the world, right? And Dean Graziosi was someone who was impacted by Tony Robbins when he was first getting started out. But the whole message that Dean was sharing in his powerful story was about how he was encouraging people to start learning more about things like sales and marketing, to acquire customers and clients and ethically persuade them. Because in his eyes, it was like, if you don't do that, then you are essentially robbing another person of the gift of experiencing your transformation. And there was a story that he shared about how, like, in his eyes, sales is completely misinterpreted by the market, by the way that it's portrayed in the media. Even if you watch movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, or there's even older ones, like every single one of these classical movies, it's almost like they put sales in such a negative light, toxic way of doing it, which, especially for women, I'd say, like, they don't want to do anything with it. They're like, no, if it's that way of doing it, then I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to jump on calls with people. I don't want to be engaging in conversation. It's like, either you want it or you don't, and that's it, right? But the way that he was describing sales was like one of the most beautiful ways that I've ever seen. Because ultimately, like, the true definition of sales is, it's about energy exchange. That's all it is. It's just a transfer of energy. And when you realize that it's not about, like, these gimmicky lines or scripts and different follow-up sequences or whatever, like, those things are important. That's the science of it. But at the heart of it, sales has always been about energy exchange. Like, if you go back to the original salespeople, who would have been the ones sat around the fire telling stories, things like that, it was all just this energy exchange that was occurring, so that you could either experience more pleasure or avoid more pain. Like, that's a simple way of doing it. So sales is ingrained within us. And for me, what I love about what Dean was sharing at that event was that sales is simply just about serving. It's about service. So I think this is like the mindset shift and the paradigm shift, that once you experience this the way that I did as well, you realize that if you're a coach, if you're a healer, if you're somebody who is already in the service-based industry, you shouldn't be avoiding sales and, like, hiding behind that particular area and skill that you can work on. But you are actually the most equipped people to be great in this area, in sales and things like that. you should be the ones who are the best at it. Because if you truly are doing your work from a place of service, then what you should recognize is that how you see the person who's a prospect is the same way that you see a person that's a client. And you operate from a place of service. You give them the experience of the service, and then once they realize that, yeah, I actually enjoyed that energy exchange that occurred there before they became a customer, chances are they're going to be happy with you being their trainer, coach, or whatever it is that you're going to do for them in that relationship and dynamic too. So he shared this story, going back to what was going on at the event. He shared this story about how his wife was a hairdresser, and like, she was someone who never got taught sales, didn't come from that background, but she'd have so many clients coming in. And part of that reason why is because when he asked her to sell him something, she basically was like, no, I can't do that. It's too difficult. Never learned sales. But then all he asked her to do was like, I want you to talk about this one little thing about your hairdressing. Like, what's the one strategy that works the best for you, and why so many people love working with you as a client? And as a hairdresser. And she started to describe it in like a really passionate way, where it lit her up so much, and she ended up, sharing it in a way which was not necessarily convincing, but it was in a way where she held so much conviction and passion in her heart about what she was sharing that it made the other person feel the energy that she then exchanged with them, and she passed on, she served, and that just put them into a state which was similar to the state that she felt within about that particular area, right? So this is one thing that I'll share right now as well, is that there is a difference between selling and closing, right? Because selling is about more so you pouring in your energy to another person so that they experience the emotional state and they understand the logic of what it is that makes sense for you as well. Like, it's essentially giving them the understanding and teachings as to why they should buy, right? But then selling is different to closing, because closing is more about not necessarily educating them through giving them the information, but it's about coaching them to come to a decision, right? So essentially all you got to do, and this is why, especially if you're a coach, like, it should be so easy for you to help a person to buy. You're just coaching them to buy, right? You're asking them quality questions and doing it in a way where ideally it's in like the least amount of moves. It's like playing a game of chess. When you're playing chess, the goal is to end the game as fast as possible. That's what we're doing with closing, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that just because it didn't finish within 15 minutes or 20 minutes that you stop. And this is a big mistake that I've seen like some of the coaches do on the calls I've been jumping on recently whilst I've been doing my market research, is like, they'll have a call which is 15 minutes long, and they've not necessarily discovered whether or not the person is qualified or disqualified. And just because the call was 15 minutes, then by the end of the 15 minutes, either they just throw a pitch out straight away, or what they'll do is they'll just disqualify the person and be like, yeah, no, don't think this is right. Gonna move on to the next person, and you just lost someone. So what's the ideal thing to do in that situation? I think that the ideal thing to do is to either, continue going beyond the 15 minutes. It's not the most ideal, because especially if you're starting to get a lot of people booking in calls and things like that, and you're enabling people to dishonor your boundaries and disrespect your time as well. So I don't recommend that. But if you're confident that it will close in the next 5-10 minutes, why not? But the thing that I would recommend instead is that if the person you don't know is actually a buyer at that point after 15 minutes, really and truly, what you want to be able to do is like send them more education videos, tools that will help educate them from where they're at in terms of their level of awareness, so that by the time you actually book in a further call to continue on the closing journey, they'll be more ready to buy, right? That's what I would personally recommend in that instance. But yeah, most coaches, most healers, most people in the set of space industry, what they're doing is they're cutting their calls short, like sending people away who would actually, become some great case studies and testimonies. And they're doing it just because, again, it's like the least amount of sales, the least amount of marketing that they can do, the more happy that they are, the more like, yes, I've won if person just comes and buys straight away. Now, this is like in the sales aspect. I've talked a lot about sales and closing, but I've also heard that there are some people who, like they want to avoid marketing, right? Some coaches, like, they're actually quite comfortable within sales, because sales is something that usually, sales and closing, it's usually something that it's more so the masculine aspect of growing your business. It's like a little bit more hustle. It's you leading a conversation, directing where it's going, so it can feel more masculine. But then what I would describe as like marketing, attraction marketing, is you being attractive for others. And so then when they're coming to you, then you're using your beauty, you're using your creativity to attract those people with your content, and then hoping that, or trusting that, they will buy based off of the engagement that they've had with your content. But I'd say the biggest difference that I've seen, and I wouldn't have a problem with that if it was genuinely attraction marketing that I'm seeing from coaches, but I don't think that it's attraction marketing that I'm seeing from coaches. What I'm also seeing is that the coaches are just putting out content that goes viral, content that, it's engaging, it's resonant, it gets views, it gets likes, but there's not actually like a funnel in place which converts somebody from being a lead to a buyer. And it's mind-blowing. Like, I was literally speaking with a guy who we were starting to do some work with him, helping him out within marketing and sales, because I realized that the coaches need this, right? And he has literally got like 100,000 followers on Instagram, tens of thousands on TikTok, even thousands of subscribers on YouTube, right? And when I asked him, how long you been doing this for? He said like a couple of years, been doing the coaching things as well. And he wants to be able to spend more time doing coaching than he is with the content creation. But because what he admitted was that, like, I'm just a guy who knows how to create content. I'm not like a marketing genius or anything like that. Like, you don't have to be a marketing genius to get this right, but you have to know a little bit. Like, you got to know the basics. And even at the level that he was at in terms of his ability to grab attention, and with that many followers and subscribers, he was saying to me that he only had 3 people in his container. And not only did he only have 3 people in his container, but none of them were actually paying high ticket. And it wasn't as if like, the guy's audience was terrible audience, everybody couldn't afford the program or whatever. It was more so that he just hadn't learned basic fundamentals of marketing. So if this is something that feels like it's calling you forth, it's calling you out a little bit, then good, because that's what this video is for. to give you that little bit of tough love, help you understand, to become aware, but then, also prompt you to make a change and, start looking at some of the simple things that you can be doing to actually learn the basics of marketing and of sales, right? Because if you make a decision right now, because it's not a case of like, oh yeah, I feel like I should do this or not. No, it's not about how you feel. It's what decision are you going to make right now? See, I'm closing you. I'm closing you on deciding that you're going to improve within sales and marketing. You're going to actually learn this thing, study it, so that you can make an impact to the people who want you to impact them, but have to be ethically persuaded. Require that, right? And my question for you is, will you make this decision that you're going to actually learn the basics, the fundamentals, and understand sales and marketing so that you can make a bigger impact on your people? And if you're willing to do that, then that's absolutely great. And what I would recommend in this first step that you can do is number one, like you've got to stop giving a fuck about like your ego. You got to stop giving a fuck about not being good enough anymore. You got to somehow coach yourself through that, because you're a coach, you're a healer. You should be able to do this. You should be able to recognize it in the mirror and be like, you know what? I've gained enough certificates. I've gained enough trophies. I've gained enough like career experience in this. I know I'm good at my thing. I know I can get people results if they give me enough money. Like, this is the best question that you can ask yourself, right? Maybe you're charging like £500 right now for your transformation, and you're a little bit uncertain as to whether you can get the person the result. You have low conviction. You know what you should do? Raise your goddamn price, 10x the price to, instead of 1,000, like 10,000. And then with that certainty and conviction, now it's like, okay, 1,000% that you will be able to get the person transformation if they was to invest that much into your program. So from that convicted place, now you can start sharing that conviction more so. Worst case scenario, if the person doesn't buy the 10K, they can go for a payment plan or go for a 5K, 2K, something like that, right? But if you're someone who genuinely believes and knows that your program can give that person their transformation, then, like I said, you have to stop giving a fuck about the ego and start focusing on coming from this place of service, serving your people, truly. Because you have everything within inside of you that you need in order to go and get them that result. You already have that belief. I know you do. So now it's just simply a case of, right, from this place of conviction, from this place of service, where am I going to place my care? My care is going to be around making sure that I get good, very, very good at being able to ethically persuade in a way where it's smooth, in a way that it makes the person feel incredible, in a way that it could still be transformational as well, in a way that works, in a way that's fun. Start placing your care in this aspect now, because you've already focused like 80-90% of your time, attention, and care on getting better at coaching, getting better at healing. You already spent all your time on that. Now it's time for you to pull your finger out and actually focus your 80% of the time on getting good at sales and marketing. Because as soon as you do that, you'll now start being able to impact that 80% of the audience, which could be an extra 100,000 people every single month, that you're changing their lives. And once you've increased that care, you'll just notice that you will not stop being able to go and start learning and coaching yourself on how to close sales like a professional, how to market like a pro, like somebody who's world class at this. Like, one of the common themes that I've seen with all of the best coaches, the ones that genuinely care the most and have impacted me, is that they were also the best at sales, is that they were also the best at marketing. One of the other, or both. That's the most common thing that I've seen. The ones that say that they're good, the ones that pretend to care, they're the ones who, they're like not actually that good at the coaching and at the sales and marketing. Because you cannot be that good at the coaching if you don't have as many clients that are coming through. If you had more testimonials, more transformations, you would constantly be reinvesting into yourself, reinvesting into your program, reinvesting into your people, and actually getting better. So from this place right now, like, you got this next level enthusiasm and care and tenacity to go out there and actually start learning more, studying about closing, sales, marketing. Where can you start? Because on the one extreme, there's the people who, they'll go for the newest things, the trending things in sales, or like scroll on social media and they're going to look for, what's going viral right now. What's the way that you can start like grabbing people's attention? What are some of the reels that are, grabbing people's attention or working in favor of the algorithm? That's what they'll do on the marketing side. Or on the sales side, it's like, this new sales guru has just come in town. Like, let me go and study him. This person's just blowing up on social media right now. Andrew Tate. Let me learn from Andrew Tate about sales. Like, no. That's at that extreme, I would not do that. The other extreme is that rather than looking at, what's trending, what's modern, what's new, you go back to the source. You go all the way back, as far back as you possibly can, look at the original intent, the original teachers of sales and what they were teaching you to do. What was the purest way of looking at sales from their lens, and learn it as how they did it? Because think about it like this, how easy it is right now to do sales, how easy it is right now to market. With the tools that we have in place, we have social media. We can literally leverage and reach millions of people throughout the world if we want to. All we got to do is like turn on the camera and then make some content. We can reach millions of people. Couldn't do that back then. With sales, we have phones. We have Zoom. We did not have this luxury like a few hundred years ago. So imagine how good they had to be back then at sales, how good that they had to be at marketing, in truly understanding the basic principles of not only human psychology, but also understanding the science of sales and marketing. Like, they had to really get it to a high level of expertise. Like, people are terrible at it right now, in general. It pains me because it almost feels like it's disrespectful to the people who have paved the way for us, to be able to do business right now. Like, they would come into this new world that we live in and they'd just be like, yeah, you guys don't know how good you have it. And they would come in and they would just absolutely clean up. As long as they knew how to use things like AI, they knew how to use things like, social media, the internet. With the skill level and artistry that they had in those in marketing and that understanding, no chance. Game over. So this is my personal perspective and opinion on it, is that you want to make sure that you understand like what the goats have said. I love the J. Cole lyric. One of the goats the goat in hip hop, right? And he says that in the song Middle Child. Lyric is, I studied the greats, now I'm the greatest. That's exactly what you got to do. You got to study the greats to become the greatest within sales and marketing. And even if your intent isn't to become the greatest ever, I don't know why it wouldn't be if you genuinely care the most. But let's say your intent isn't that. Your intent is to just be okay, to just be good enough. Well, if that's your intent, why not still go with the same strategy? Because through aiming for that greatness, you'll fall at the level of good at some point. You just don't have to continue. You can stop. Instead of putting in 5 years into studying sales and marketing, you just put in 3 months. But in those 3 months, you actually put your focus on learning like the Bible of sales, the Bible of marketing. And you might be wondering right now, okay, what is that? What is the Bible of sales? What is the Bible of marketing? The first thing that came to mind was the actual Bible. Because like the more that I'm studying, the more that I'm learning, I'm like, yeah, I think people, if they genuinely studied the Bible and understood what it was talking about and speaking about, it would help them with sales, it would help them with marketing. But without having to go that far back, without having to go that deep, I'd say that some of the Bibles within sales and marketing is, listening to the likes of Og Mandino for sales and his book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. Like, when you listen to a book like that, not only does it change your whole view on sales, because it almost sells you on sales itself, but you're also recognizing that 99% of coaches are just not getting this stuff right now. They're just not learning this stuff right now. And that gives you such a confidence and a conviction that, you know what, like, I'm going to be 10 times better than most people. It was actually my dad that used to say this a lot when I was younger. When I used to play sport, he would always say to me, like, we're going to go for a run, we're going to train in the gym, we're going to do all these things. And I was like a badminton player. So every other kid was like skinny, all good with the strokes and the technique, but none of them used to train. So when I'd come and I'd actually get on the court, he'd say, like, the reason why you're going to win this competition, why you're going to be so ready for it, is because we've made the training more difficult than the actual game itself. So you're over prepared, essentially. And this is what you want to have as your same attitude and approach when it comes to your sales and marketing. It's like, how can you over prepare? How can you out train everyone else? And learning books like The Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino, it's like, even if you just have the title in your mind, that you know that you have that downloaded, the greatest salesperson in the world, it's a game changer. Marketing book. If you haven't studied Eugene Schwartz and you haven't looked at his work and the books that he has, like the main book, then again, you're missing out. And you're showing that you don't truly care, right? Because that's like the Bible of marketing. So once you have studied the Bible, once you've studied like the scriptures of sales and marketing, then you can start progressing into some of the more modern stuff. But even then, I'd say that, like, there's the likes of Zig Ziglar, Secrets of Closing the Sale. It's not exactly modern, but it's still one of the greats, one of these great books. And a lot of people, like, they give me this question of like, oh, but sales has changed now. It's not the same as what it used to be. You can't use those same lines and tactics, and that just wouldn't work in this day and age. And I think that's pure bullshit. I think that, yes, the world has shifted and it's changed, and some of the lines people would have heard before. So yeah, just copying it from a script is not going to do you any better. But the whole idea is that whilst you have gone and consumed that knowledge and wisdom from some of those greats from back then, like you've uploaded their consciousness within to you. And the idea then is then through you being present on your phone calls, through you being present in your marketing, it just gives you this competitive advantage because everyone else will have only studied what was the bare minimum to study in their coaching certification or in their personal training qualification, right? And I've mostly said it for like coaches and personal trainers, but it also works for every service-based industry. You know, people like doctors, none of them get taught sales, but if they simply knew a little bit of sales and marketing, they would be able to take care of so many more people. And this was another thing that I remember Dean Graziosi said as well. He said that, and this really hit home for me, which was because of your unwillingness, arrogance, and ego in actually humbling yourself and learning about sales, the biggest cost to the person is that instead of actually going to someone like you who genuinely cares, is able to get them the result, instead of going to you, they go to somebody else who's less competent, doesn't care as much, and won't give them the same experience that you're willing to give them for less. That's the biggest cost. And when he said that, I was like, that's real. Like if you're somebody who genuinely cares, you can't let that sit with yourself. You just don't feel okay with that no more. And you have to start learning, which is why I went crazy into it. Not only was I reading the books, not only was I listening to the podcasts, not only was I taking in and digesting the information, I went into sales career. I went and did door-to-door sales, not because I wanted the money, but because I wanted to impact people. That was my intention from the very beginning, even though I didn't share it with the people that I was surrounded by. My intention from the very beginning was that I'm going to take all of this stuff, this information. I'm willing to go out there and sell something I don't like. I'm willing to go and bang on doors and speak to strangers I don't want to talk to about a product that I don't care about, just so that I can learn the sales system. Why? Because Dean Graziosi unlocked my care. Right. And yeah, it wasn't just Dean. Like it was also, you know, one of my mentors who I met in Barcelona, and he dragged me out of my comfort zone because I was giving these excuses of saying that I'm not ready, working on my personal training thing, working part-time. And he just challenged me. It was like, why? To which I couldn't really answer, because I knew that the truth and the actual answer was that I just don't care. I don't care at that level that you care at right now, which is why you're the one who is the speaker on stage, which is why you're the one who's impacted thousands of people. I don't care at that level right now. And I could see the gap. So, yeah, I trust that if you're watching this right now and you've been listening all the way through, that you're starting to experience the cogs turning a little bit, experiencing that wake-up call and recognizing that it is not enough to accept that only 10% of your people in your audience will come to you, and 80% will go to those who don't care as much. 80% will be left out completely. 80% will never get that transformation that you want people to go through. And my intention for you is that you personally make a change so that you don't have to rob them, at least, of the transformation that only they can get from you. Because I believe that every single one of us has our own unique gifts to be expressed in our own unique way that is specifically designed to help our own unique audience. And if you don't have the care that I'm sharing right now with you, those people who will only experience the kind of transformation that God has ordained for them to experience through you, they'll never experience it. And that would be a tragedy. Especially if you're someone who genuinely cares. So I had to share this message because it was bothering me. It's like, this is something that I have to share because I care, right? And hopefully you can feel that. You can hear it from the delivery, how I've actually put this forth. And my intent from now on is just to continue showing up authentically and sharing my care. And yeah, I've personally done the work, studied in sales, studied in marketing, implemented, applied the knowledge, the truth, and the interesting thing for myself is that I actually focused a lot more time on the sales and the marketing than I actually did in making something that was really good. And so this is where I'm at personally right now, where it's like I'm noticing the gap between myself and a lot of these other coaches who spend more of their time on working on their coaching. They're doing it for 10 years, 15 years, 20, 30 years, not worked on sales and marketing. Don't know about funnels, don't know about landing pages, don't know about ads, don't know about these things that actually, like, you know, make the money for the business, grow the business, get more clients in. I'm seeing it and I'm just like, wow, my brain was so much more different. Like my heart was so much more different because I was focusing on just caring for the people and offering them the result, the transformation, telling them about my idea. But now, because of the fact that I have been able to, you know, help enough people to realize that there's a lot of feedback on my actual container, my experience, then I've been focusing a lot more on making something that the market genuinely wants and needs. And it's not just irresistible in terms of the idea and the offer, but it's also irresistible. Not just irresistible, but it's something that people will not stop be able to stop talking about and give referrals for. And I believe that that's the real balance that we want to have, where we're not just getting good at making the actual product, the thing, but we're also good at being able to package the thing, make it look good, promote it, share it with others, the idea, and influence people, persuade them ethically to become buyers. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. And my biggest piece of advice and intention in a nutshell is just start caring. Start caring about your people. And through that, you'll truly start serving, and sales will become natural for you. It'll become easy because you'll learn it the right way and you'll start doing it the right way as well. So that's it from me today. Peace and love, and I'll see you next time.